Greetings on behalf of SAMIDOUN, Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, to the comrades of the Unitary Campaign to Free George Abdallah. Your work is critically important to liberate this heroic freedom fighter who has been imprisoned in French jails for over 36 years for his commitment to Palestinian, Arab, and international liberation. We know that this Palestinian Prisoners' Day also comes at a critical time in France for the movement as a whole, in which fascist, right-wing, and Zionist forces are intensifying their attacks on the movement and on oppressed communities throughout the country, a project that is fully backed by the Israeli state. Of course, this reminds us of how the French state imprisons George Abdallah and is in a firm alliance with the United States and Israel to keep him behind bars because he remains true to his revolutionary political vision. For example, we see the order of Israeli war criminal and so-called defense minister Benny Gantz designating SAMIDOUN a terrorist organization because we speak internationally for the Palestinian prisoners, expose the crimes of the Zionist state, and organize for the boycott of Israel. In France, we see our comrades of the Collectif Palestine Vaincra threatened with dissolution by French parliamentarians, a demand echoing that of Israel's so-called Ministry of Strategic Affairs. All of this repression will only intensify our efforts to build solidarity and organize together for the liberation of all Palestinian prisoners and the liberation of Palestine. Below is some of the call to action from SAMIDOUN Network in occupied Palestine for the Week of Action for Palestinian Prisoners, 17 to 23 April 2021. We call upon all the democratic and progressive forces of the world and all friends of the Palestinian people, liberation movements, solidarity organizations, and movements to join us in this call for rights and justice. We call upon you today with a free cry to the global conscience to stand firmly and clearly with the Palestinian people's struggle and their legitimate and continuous resistance until victory and liberation. This is the call of the prisoners of freedom in the prisons of Zionist colonialism, the front line of the Palestinian resistance in occupied Palestine. The prisoners are a revolutionary corps engaged in the struggle on the front lines, every day, every hour, every minute and second, confronting with their bodies and their voices the Israeli brutality and Zionist crimes that are fully supported by the United States and its imperialist allies. We carry the message of the prisoners' movement inside the Israeli occupation prisons and call upon you to participate and join with us in organizing for popular and solidarity activities, campaigns, actions, and movements in support of the Palestinian prisoners and their just struggle for freedom and liberation. We call upon you to expose the daily Zionist crimes to which they are constantly subjected, including the policies of repression, isolation, collective punishment, and deprivation practiced by the prison administration against them. These systematic policies include the denial of family visits, denial of communication with lawyers, isolation and solitary confinement, collective punishment, torture, administrative detention without charge or trial, violent raids of prisoners' rooms, confiscation of books, and the continued detention of children and ill patients, a situation that has only intensified in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the threat it poses to the lives of all Palestinian prisoners and detainees in Israeli jails. At the same time, the Palestinian people in occupied Jerusalem are continuing their popular struggle and steadfastness, confronting the bulldozers of the occupation and the policy of comprehensive cleansing, uprooting, and systematic dispossession of the Palestinian people. It is clear that the policy of arrests practiced by the Zionist colonial authority targets the Palestinian people throughout occupied Palestine, in the West Bank, Jerusalem, and occupied Palestine 48, and in the besieged Gaza Strip, where aggression, siege, and arrests target even fishermen and farmers in Gaza. We extend our salutes to all of the activists, strugglers, and freedom fighters detained in the prisons of the world. We stand with their just and legitimate struggles to achieve their goals and salute their sacrifices. We remind ourselves in the world of the suffering of our fellow political prisoners in the prisons of Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Egypt, Greece, the Philippines, Colombia, the United States, and elsewhere, and we call for support for their resistance and liberation on this week of solidarity with Palestinian prisoners. We send our deepest greetings of steadfastness and honor to Comrade George Ibrahim Abdallah in French prisons. He is an exceptional revolutionary figure, one of the symbols of the Palestinian resistance and a leader of the Palestinian prisoners movement. Long live the Palestinian people's struggle for liberation and return. Long live the struggle of the Palestinian prisoners movement. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.